Get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. Joe Rogan having an interesting conversation. You can tell that this guy, as he's talking about where he served, I believe Iraq, Afghanistan, you can tell he's kind of going through it mentally. He doesn't break down or anything, but you can tell he's upset. And I guess the last letdown that he had was the Afghanistan pullout. And his question is, why is nobody being held responsible? And that's what we're going to be touching on. A couple of clips from Trump talking about that as well. And then one recent clip from Trump addressing his exact concerns. Let's get right into that. And then I'm going to show you the actual people who are responsible for the Afghan pullout, because that was something that came to mind for me too. I was like, who is actually responsible besides Biden? Let's get into it.
I lost a lot of confidence in the decision makers. But, okay, the question is, well, why'd you keep going back? Well, because you want to try to search for meaning, and you're trying to find the actual purpose. Like, what is the purpose? Like, are there WMDs here? Like, are there, legit direct traces back to 9/11? Are there things that we're doing that are going to directly affect and protect America? And you're kind of searching for it. And not kind of, you are. Like, that's what you're doing, or at least that's what I was doing. And by the time I left in 2009, I just figured I was going to die. Like, I was like, this place, I lived Iraq, right? And then I was like, well, I think time and repetition in thinking that you're dead for that long, and then searching for not only some what I would say is good in the war itself, because there is good. You have your buddies, you have the camaraderie, you have the adrenaline, but you also think you're going to fucking die every day for years on end. And that's not, fundamentally, it turns out it's probably not good for you psychologically, I guess. And so I went to Afghanistan thinking, well, and I went to train Afghanis for a force up there. And when I went to train those guys, it was, hey, if I can train Afghanis to take on the war, maybe I can protect 18-year-old kids from getting their legs blown off. Maybe I can protect the 20-year-old kid from Nebraska from getting an RPG stuffed through their face. And I was older, and I was also willing to die. So the kids, when I say the kids, 18, 20 years old, like, man, it's not fun to watch those. When I say that, that's an understatement. It's so heartbreaking to watch a kid that's never been to combat, like, die. It changes everything in your life. And so you go from, Iraq to Afghanistan, and I'm watching all this stuff unfold, and there's, and I don't want to say it's all negative, because there were things that were very positive, but I'm so jaded by the time I get there that I'm like, well, if I can save some Americans, I'll save some Americans. And, if not, at least this will be an interesting experience. And then, there's a laundry list of other things that we can talk about. I don't want to get so down, I guess.
It seems like it's impossible not to once you're going back on it. And how could you not? And the overwhelming negative experiences, the overwhelming horrific experiences.
Well, I think that's where I have this massive distrust in politicians. And I think that's part of the reason. They have squandered the courage of the American servicemen in these forever wars that we've entered in under lies. So, Wolfowitz and W and Rumsfeld and
Colin Powell.
Yeah. And sorry, man, I don't have any respect for those guys. Like, not only do I not have any respect for those guys, I have a profound amount of hatred for their arrogance. Because I'm in my 20s. I'm not making excuses, but there's plenty of guys like me that were not only hook, line, and sinker, and I'd still sign up for this country. I think service is a remarkable courage. It's courage and service back to our community is something we have to cherish, like we do. But when you have an orchestra of idiots that are manipulating the courageous men and women of our country to go into these wars based on a neocon pipe dream, and there's no consequences. You can pull out of Afghanistan and leave billions of dollars of equipment. Who the got fired? But if I made a mistake, if me and my buddies made a mistake, we lost our lives. We'd go to jail. Like, we lost our clearances. And I'm not trying to sound like a whiny bitch. I'm just saying, like, no consequences for these guys. Nothing. They get to go paint paintings and they think it's okay.
Imagine no consequences for lying about weapons of mass destruction. And has there ever been a large-scale investigation as to what led them to either believe or to push the narrative that there was weapons of mass destruction?
Oh, man. They get into another topic there, weapons of mass destruction, and the answer to that is no. And we all know that was a lie. I think, spoiler alert for anyone who's just catching up, that was just a big lie. It was just a big excuse, obviously. But just to watch what he's going through mentally as he's like breaking it all down, it's very, very, I don't want to just say interesting. It's almost heartbreaking because it seems like, him, again, I brought it up as, Afghanistan, it was like his last letdown. You keep going as he's talking about, you keep trying to find it and you're trying to find it. And you're trying to find the good. And then something like that happens. And you're like, well, just again, I get screwed and my friends get screwed and some people die. And it's not just Americans, but it's also the Afghans that, that he might have trained, might have worked with, wanted to protect. And it's just like, it just keeps happening. It seems like it just keeps happening over and over and over again to this guy, and, multiply him by, hundreds of thousands of people who have served the country, right? It's sad, really sad to see. Now, when we're talking about the Afghan pullout, I'm going to play this clip of Donald Trump sitting down talking about this.
Left. They started shooting our soldiers. But more importantly, what they did is they did that whole thing with, leaving. He shouldn't have left. Number one, should have left from Bagram, because Bagram's this massive base. It's got tremendous acreage around it. Tremendous. It's a very big, it was built many years ago. And part of the reason you wouldn't have taken that is because it goes to China. 1 hour from where China makes its nuclear missiles, you should have never left Bagram. Number one, they should have left from Bagram. They should have left last. They should have got, we have Americans that are still there. They should have taken all their equipment out. Everything, every plane, every screw should have been taken out, every tent. And I said that, that's when I realized that Millie was a dummy. I said, we're leaving, but I want to get everything out. Sir, it's cheaper to leave it. I said, what do you mean
cheaper to leave it?
Yeah, he said it's cheaper to leave it. That was
cheaper.
Cheaper. He said it's cheaper. Sir.
Not more dangerous.
He just said cheaper. I said, I want every plane. I want every tank. I want the goggles. They have night goggles. They have all this stuff that these guys now have. He said, sir, it's cheaper to get out and leave it. I said, so you think it's cheaper to leave a $150 million brand new airplane in there than it is to fly it out with a tank of jet fuel and put it in Pakistan or just fly it directly back? It's cheaper to leave. I said, this guy's nuts. I'm telling you, he was so stupid. He was so unwise. He was like an unwise man. And there were a number of them.
It's interesting, Trump finishes that with saying he was an unwise man. And actually, Evan, as this clip goes on, he starts talking about Cheney and other generals. And he also refers to these people as unwise. Yeah, it's just interesting that they both have that description of them. But I mean, I'm just focusing on the pullout here. Trump actually wanted this to happen a certain way. I think everybody wanted it to happen a certain way, especially for those of us that have seen the images that I can't show on here of people grabbing on the planes and throwing babies and just, running for their lives, basically. You're an interpreter for the US, and you've been interpreting, and now they're leaving, and you're going to be hunted down, and you have nothing. It's just crazy. So here's another clip of Trump talking about the pullout.
They're blaming it on me. For a while they didn't because it doesn't play. But we had a great plan, and they understood the plan. But the plan was subject to doing a lot of different things. But number one, you don't pull out the military first, okay? They pulled out the military first. You pull out the military last. First, you get your American citizens out. You get some other people that were loyal to us out, not the number of people that they took. But there are people like interpreters and others that were very loyal to us that are probably maybe gone now or in great danger. We just took out thousands and thousands of people. Half of the people we took out were probably terrorists. But we had a plan, and those people, think of it, because of how badly it was done, 13 dead, many horribly wounded, $85 billion worth of equipment goes to them. They display it every year at their little parade. They have a parade where they show the Americans with the equipment. My plan was subject to following certain steps, and they didn't follow those steps. And I told my people, nope, it's dead, and then they'd follow the steps. And it was phase 2, and they had to follow the steps. They had to follow all of the stuff. They didn't do any of it, and that would mean it was dead. Now then, once we called them on it, because it was subject to, they started doing everything perfectly. It would have been perfect. But these people, they took it over. They had no idea. They just moved. But here's the thing. You have to move the military out last.
So that's been Trump's main talking point. I think everybody knows that. But, when they say the $85 billion, I thought that was a made-up number. I was like, that's not a real number. I'm like, let me go find out the real number. And it's $85 billion. Jeez, it's crazy. And just to play this really quick, at the beginning of that clip that I just played, Trump says they tried to blame him. And apparently they did. And I did not know this. Check this out.
10 top retired generals just released a major statement blaming Donald Trump for the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal. In this new statement signed by 10 top generals, they write that Donald Trump fails to take responsibility for his part in the withdrawal and putting service members' lives in danger. Specifically, that Donald Trump and his administration negotiated the withdrawal with the Taliban that freed 5,000 Taliban fighters, and that the Trump administration left the Biden-Harris administration with no plans and no ability to execute a withdrawal. But despite that, the Biden-Harris administration ended America's longest war and executed an airlift that put an end to the war. The 10 generals then endorsed Kamala Harris, saying that she has the temperament to lead and to protect our troops, while Donald Trump put our troops in harm's way.
Isn't that something? That's very interesting. They blame Donald Trump. First off, you would think, because these are generals, that they would be able to say, okay, well, this is where we're at. Let's handle this. This is something, I would think this is what Kamala Harris would do. Well, just leave. Just leave. Yeah, leave it all and just go. Yeah, quickly. That sounds like something she would do. But 10 generals? A bunch of generals? You guys can't just sit amongst yourselves for a week, 2 weeks, and figure out what to do, even if Trump's administration did leave them high and dry. You couldn't talk to some people. I mean, literally, this guy right here seems pretty upset. I bet him some other Green Berets, some Delta Force people, just guys who are just operators, could have figured out something. But somehow these generals are like, nope, no one could figure it out, and it's all Trump's fault. Well, the only reason I play all these clips is because recently Trump came out, and he has been hearing what the veterans are saying, what the servicemen are saying, and he actually does want there to be some responsibility taken.
We'll get the resignations of every single senior official who touched the Afghanistan calamity to be on my desk at noon on Inauguration Day. You have to fire people. You have to fire people when they do a bad job. We never fire anybody. You got to fire them. Like on The Apprentice, you fired, you did a lousy job. You did a terrible, terrible disservice to our country. You get fired when that happens. Nobody got fired. Nobody ever gets fired in this administration. It's amazing, all the bad things that have happened. Nobody ever gets fired. The problem is when you fire somebody, they always end up writing a book about you, you know? I've had more books written about me. I fire a lot of people when they don't do a good job. I get a book written about me by all these losers that get fired. We'll get the...
Oh man, I don't know how he made that funny. that was amazing. So and I only play this
I'll
again.
ask for the resignations of every single senior military official who touched the Afghanistan disaster.
So I only say that because, you know, as much as you guys know, I love Trump, you know, we know who these people are. And honestly, this is one thing that he should be held to. You know, he should do it. So apparently the top 3 generals involved, or top 3 people, I should say, General Milley, General McKenzie, and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. There have been calls for Milley to resign and Austin. I'm sure there's been some for McKenzie as well, but those have been the notable ones that I've seen in my research. And honestly, we should hold Trump to this. We should remember these people. And, you know, he said day one, you know, that's a bold statement to make if you're just lying. I don't think he's lying. I think he really wants to do that. I think he has a disdain for these people. And I think they actually did do a lousy job. And they've left a lot of servicemen traumatized, disappointed, and just straight up just sad, you know, just sad about what happened, because a lot of them know it didn't have to happen this way. I did some more looking into it. Apparently this is another person that's responsible. I'll just give these some brief. Let me make this a little smaller here. Let me make this smaller. Let me get this screen a little smaller for you guys. So Dan, I have no idea. Senedin. Okay, so he canceled all vocational programs returning Afghans into the United States. This caused major issues, especially with the airline, who were hoping to utilize them as air mechanics and stand-ins. A stark contrast with the administration promises that they were doing everything they could to ease the plight of the Afghan refugees. So that's one person that's responsible. Another person that's responsible is Samantha Vinograd, senior counselor for national security, former CNN personality. Well, there you go. There you go. Who was serving as the national counselor for senior counselor for national security during the withdrawal. She was acting as assistant secretary for counterterrorism and threat prevention in the front office of DHA. It is believed that she had decision-making rights on Operation Allies Welcome, but did not make many decisions attributing to the chaos. So, you know, maybe not her so much, but it seems like a little bit. I mean, just CNN. I'm gonna put some blame on her just for the fact that she's CNN. Yeah, if she doesn't deserve it here, she deserves it somewhere. Head of Afghanistan Coordination Task Force, Ambassador Tracy Jacobson. That's another person. Felicia Escobar, Chief of Staff, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration. She was responsible for approving visas for Afghan refugees, a program criticized for delays and mismanagement. There is still a backlog of Afghans who are waiting for their visas while being hunted by the Taliban for assisting U.S. That's a huge thing. I've watched a bunch of documentaries on that. It's very sad what happens to those people, because if they can't find them, they go after those people's families. And, you know, there's no keeping them. There's no scaring them. It's just you pop up and, you know, one of your nephews is just passed away because, you know, that's just what they do. Claire McNulty, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Assistant Director Office of Immigration Program Evaluation. Her department is responsible for overseeing distribution of visas to Afghan refugees, while her office is responsible for monitoring their case management. Gave 87 million government no-bid contract to a nonprofit headed by her former boss. Jeez. John Kirby, it's another person that's responsible. Wendy R. Sherman, Deputy Secretary of State, assisted overseeing logistics and screening of the Afghans. Victoria Newland, who else? And that's it. Just remember those names. Remember this video. Remember those names. Hopefully Trump, I don't know how many of them are senior level, because Trump made sure to say it was senior level, but those people should be held responsible. They put and are putting way too many people in this guy's situation. He seems good for the most part, but, and this is a 4.5 hour podcast, but there is this blip in the podcast where you can tell this guy has been affected. And this is one of the good ones. This is one of the ones that's running a 7-figure business, doing well in life. What about the guys who don't have this? What are they going through? So that's just one thing. I again, love Trump, love that he's president, think he's making some incredible picks for his cabinet, but getting rid of those people who were responsible is something he should be held to. And I won't forget, January 20th, first day, he said. So hopefully that goes down. I can't wait to see it. I think he's going to do it. I have faith that he's going to do it. Anyways, guys, like, subscribe, turn on the notifications, helps the channel tremendously. And other than that, I'm out.